We might get started if we can. Thank you, members of the gallery. Just checking the screen. Yep, thank you. Look, I'd like to start with a statement of acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge this land that we meet on today is the traditional land of the Kaurna people, and that we respect their spiritual relationships with their country. We acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Greater Adelaide region, and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Deputy Mayor Nathan Shanks, just currently filling in for Mayor Karen Redman. We'll go through attendance record, roll call. We do have an item to deal with Mayor Redman's absence moving down. No apologies, so I'll move on to granting the leave of absence. Do I have a mover for the leave of absence? Councillor Hennessy, I saw your hands up first. Would you like to speak?
Yes, I believe the Councillor White would seek leave of absence from the 22nd to the 24th of April, inclusive. No, sorry.
Sorry, that was my fault. I thought you were moving Mayor Redman. You're happy to move that way? We might move on to Councillor White's after if you're okay with that. Can I get a seconder for Mayor Karen Redman's leave? Councillor Samble, any discussion? There be none. I'll put that to the vote, and we have that carried unanimously. Thank you, members. Councillor, yes. Oh, sorry. I'll put that to the vote for Mayor Karen Redman's leave. All those in favour to approve the vote. The leave. Sorry. Yes, carried. And those against. Yes, I saw that you just. So yeah.
Just to be clear, Madam Deputy, I think we just need to clarify how Councillor Valalonga is going to vote. Are you for the motion or against the motion?
I'll go again. Just so we're very clear, Mayor Karen Redman seeking leave from the 14th of March 2025 to the 14th of June inclusive. Councillor Hennessy moved, and we had a seconder in Brian Samble. So all those in favour of Karen taking the leave, please raise your hand. And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Solomon. Sorry for my oversight there. Councillors, I think we've got another leave request. If you're happy to move that way, Councillor Davies for Councillor White. And we are working on the dates of, I believe it was the 22nd to the 24th inclusive of April. And you're happy to second that? I'll just let the minute take a catch up. So that would be Councillor Davies and seconded Councillor Lorna. And that was the 22nd of April to the 25th of April inclusive. Thank you for that. Any discussion on that? If there isn't, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour of the leave? Councillor Valalonga, you've carried unanimously. Thank you for that. And we have no non-attendance. Do we have anyone in the gallery that would like to contribute to public open forum? There be none. I have no listed deputations. We have no adjourned items and no petitions. Looking for a confirmation of minutes for the Ordinary Council meeting 25th of January. We'll do one at a time. In February. Councillor Hughes, you're happy to move that way? Do I have a seconder for the minutes for the February Ordinary Council meeting? Councillor Solomon. Any discussion? There be none. I'll put that to the vote. Carried unanimously. moving on to the special council meeting, 18th of March 2025. You're happy to move that way, Councillor Hennessy. Have a seconder, Councillor White. I think we did have a slight typo that has now been amended, which thank you for that governance. All those in favour of accepting those minutes carried unanimously. Thank you. Business arising from minutes, I have nil. So we actually move on to our first officer's recommendation, where I'm going to have to declare a material conflict and depart the chamber. That'll be the same for the item after, so just to save time, I'll stay out of the room until brought back in.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Thank you, council members. Now I'd like to call for nominations for who would like to be our acting chair. Councillor White, do I have any further nominations? That being the case, I'd now ask Councillor White to come forward, be our acting chair. Thank you.
Thank you, members. So we'll move to item 9.1. Now, there has been an amendment to the officer's recommendation that was made on Friday, and the agenda went out Thursday. So I'll just go to the CEO just to explain that.
Thank you for that, Mr Acting Chair. I felt it was important just to provide a bit of clarity around this item. The first being that a short while after the agenda was published, Med Redman requested that I advise council that she'd given it much thought and she was going to decline accepting the mayoral allowance during the period of her leave of absence. Hence, I thought it was important to add into the motion for council's consideration. The other aspect I just want to clarify, if I may, is the financials on page 7. There was an error in the agenda. I do apologise for that, and I'd just like to correct the figures for councillors' consideration this evening. The mayoral allowance should actually be $83,540. The deputy mayor's allowance should be $26,106, and the councillor's allowance should be $20,885. So in the context of what we're considering this evening, should council adopt this motion, it would result in a savings to council of $6,526, that being a quarter of the deputy mayor's allowance. So with those few words, I'll hand back. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr Cowley. So item 9.1, I'll look for a mover. Councillor Davies, did you want to speak on the item?
Sure, just to say, this is, I know there's been a bit of community discussion about this, but just want to clarify, this is all, it's the right of the mayor to decline it, and good on her for doing that, but it is also her right, if she wanted to have that leave. And I think this wouldn't be much of a discussion if it had been over a small period of time. The mayor has been nearly continuously the mayor with very small periods of leave for coming up on 10 to 12 years now. If she had taken a week of leave here and there over that time, there would be no big discussion about this, but since she's taking leave all at once, it comes out as a lot of people, wanting to talk about it. But I think really there's, I don't know, I just think this is just, I'm glad that we can sort out all of this and save some money, but, I don't think I think the leave stuff was a bit overblown in terms of community discussion.
Thanks, Councillor Davies. I'll look for a seconder. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Hennessy or Councillor Lorna, are you happy to second? Would you like to speak?
Thank you, Acting Chair. Is the one in it, something like that? So I'm picking up on the words of what Councillor Davies is putting down there, and I sort of agree. I do see that the Mayor had spent a lot of time in this role, and she's already done it. She's, you know, understands what's going on. I've got no issues with, you know, with the payment going across to Deputy Mayor and that. I believe anyone that's sitting in this room would understand how much work's actually involved, and I believe most people in this room would commit to it fully as well. So it's in my support. I think it is the resolution that sort of needs to happen. So, yep, appreciate it.
Thanks, Councillor Lorna. Is there any discussion on this item? Councillor Hennessy.
I'd just like to echo the words of both Councillor Lorna and Councillor Davies. It's a little unfortunate that the figures were incorrect, but regardless, the allowance we get is due, and I think we all accept that and we understand where it comes from. And certainly the Mayor has not taken significant leave over nearly 13 years, I think. So I think it's actually been a small minority of the community. I think from my experience and conversations that I've had, there has been no such discussion, but I'm glad the Mayor has offered to do this. It certainly helps us financially, but there is no precedent to that, so thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hennessy. Is there any further discussion, members? Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, just quickly, yeah, agree with the other councillors and support this motion, but yeah, do think it's unfortunate that there was the discussion online, and you know, over the years we've had a lot of other mayors and retired councillors and councillors. We've had councillors in the Defence Force that were away for long periods that, you know, and also got re-elected, and you know, those people were well known in the community, and yeah, it is part of the role, and the Mayor has worked 24/7 for the community and been on call for the community for quite a long time, and only had very minimal breaks. So, yeah, I just think the whole thing has been very unfortunate. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Hughes. Councillor Solomon.
I just want to reinforce in supporting this, I just want to reinforce, I think, an underlying principle to this, which is about what the community expectations are for someone in that mayoral role, and how we set up the conditions that allow people to do that. And when, you know, we don't properly ensure that people can meet the needs of their families and those around them, that results in, you know, a lack of ability for a person in that role to be able to fulfil their duties to a standard which is expected. So I think this is quite a proper motion in the sense that it does reflect that, and that if we are expecting people who are not already incredibly wealthy or will have to forgo work in order to undertake the duties of and responsibilities of the mayoralty, that we ensure that they're able to do that, and they don't have to they don't have to make decisions on whether or not they can afford to do that role to the standard that's expected. So I just leave the chamber with those remarks in supporting this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Solomon. Is there any further discussion, members? No. Councillor Davies, do you want to wrap up the debate? No, you're happy if I put the motion? Okay, moved by Councillor Davies, seconded by Councillor Lorna. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's carried unanimously. Thank you, members. We'll move to item 9.2. Deputy Mayor Shanks has declared a conflict in this item too, so I'll remain in the chair for this item. Thank you. Apologies, members. So just firstly, before we move this motion, I'll just call for nominations to a member that would like to be appointed to the Audit and Risk Committee for the period Mayor Redman is on a leave of absence. If there's just one nomination, we can put that in there. If there's more than one, I'll go to the CEO as returning officer. So do I have any nominations? Councillor Davies, nominating yourself? Yes, Councillor Davies. Is there any other nominations, members? No. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Davies. So we'll pop Councillor Davies' name in the officer's recommendation. This is, just to be clear, members, the recommendation would be that Council appoints Councillor Davies to the Audit and Risk Committee for the period Mayor Redmond is on a leave of absence, and secondly, appoints Deputy Mayor Shanks as the Town of Gawler delegate to the Australian Local Government Association 2025 National General Assembly. So could I get a mover for that motion? Councillor Sample, would you like to speak to the motion? Oh, you're, okay. Can we get a mover for the motion? Councillor Hughes, would you like to speak?
Just briefly, I think it's, the audit committee is really important, but also going to the conference is a really good thing. I did it a number of years ago and learnt a lot and got a lot of really good contacts, and think it's really important that Gawler's represented. You do get to meet a lot of the secretaries of the government departments, the actual workers underneath the politicians and things like that. So yeah, it's really quite important role.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Sample, would you like to second that motion? Yes, would you like to speak at all? No? All goods? Yes, you are. Yes, it's just two parts. First of all is Councillor Davies to the Audit and Risk Committee. Second is Deputy Mayor to the 2025 NGA. So moved by Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Sample. Is there any further discussion, members? There's none. Councillor Hughes, are you happy if I put that motion? I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. I will vacate the chair and we can get Deputy Mayor Shanks back in. Thank you.
All right, members, sorry, just give me 2 seconds to catch back up. Okay, so we're on item 9.3. We have an officer's recommendation, and we also have Alec in the room as well if there's any questions anyone would like to ask prior to moving anything. So I'm in your hands, members. There be no questions. I do have an officer's recommendation. Looking for a mover on item 9.3, members. Councillor Hennessy, thank you. Would you like to speak at all to the item? Councillor Hennessy, no. Looking for a seconder. Councillor Solomon, would you like to speak to the item?
Just briefly, I believe what's in the report is fairly self-explanatory, but just to make the point, and I do make this point quite often here in the chamber over the past few months, but to really understand where a learning is from how we protect our heritage in this town and how we make sure we're maintaining our assets so that we don't have costs that spring up by surprise. And so I think that's a really important takeaway from what we've experienced here, but also ensuring that we are looking after what is a really important asset to our town.
Thank you, Councillor Solomon. Do I have any further discussion? Councillor Lorna?
Thank you for that. Look, I will vote in favour of this at the moment. I do feel it's time we cut our losses. This has been dragging on for quite some time. We're here at this situation now. I feel that we actually just need to pull the band-aid off of it. Am I happy with the costs? No, not at all. But that's what we've got to deal with from the times that we've dealt with over many, many years. So apologies for the community with the burden that we now face, but that is what it is. We can't leave it for future councils to try and deal with it or have it fall down because everyone's concerned or too scared to act on it and do it. So here we are, and thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lorna. Councillor White?
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Just a question through the chair, potentially through to Wendy. Just maybe it'd be nice to get a bit of a. We've had a lot of updates about this project throughout the entire process, but maybe just a bit of a brief overview of what's happened in recent months for the benefit of the community. I think that would be, if that was possible, I think that would be much appreciated.
Okay, yeah, no worries. Councillor White. Wendy, are you happy to just give a bit of a dot point? Thank you.
Yep, so through the chair, thank you, Councillor White, because I'm actually going to start this with the comment that I do think I've reflected a lot just in the last few weeks around the comm strategy around this project, and I do think that I've got a couple of levels of improvement to do that, because when I tried to explain what we've spent the last 2 years doing to get to where we are now to someone who had no involvement and knew nothing about engineering or about heritage walls, they just looked at me and went, what? So that gave me a chance to go, okay, so I need to get better at that. So that's something I'm really going to commit to over the next 6 weeks as we lead into construction, but then also throughout the construction, and make sure that, you know, we are capturing different video, capturing the different things that are going on ground, and put it through our website, probably as our main platform for communicating that. But thank you for giving me a chance now to just do the quick update. So really over the last few months, it has been coming up with the final design. So this final design is based on the preferred concept design that we agreed back over 12 months ago. But to get from a concept design to a detailed design, that means we're ready to fully cost it, get our development approvals, heritage approvals, and actually get on site. It takes a lot of steps, and this process was just complicated by that heritage and historic burial plot. So we undertook a whole heap of investigations, again behind the wall, understanding what the soil structure is, understanding what type of footings we need to have so that this wall can actually stay up and be stable for at least another 100 years. And also so that we could understand again what, I guess, sensitive materials we might find as we're going to excavate. So all of that took time, and all of that had its own permits to get as well. So, but with all of that information, we've had structural designers come up with the footings and the structural wall element, and then we have had architects coming up with, I guess, the heritage component of the front-facing component of the wall, so that we still have a wall that looks like its original heritage context. We've done the investigations around the trees that sit behind the wall currently. A number of those are going to be removed. They'll have their appropriate approvals to have them removed. The beautiful palms, which are petticoat palms, that's the right one? Yes, we thought they were something else, but they're petticoat palms. We've come up with a construction methodology which allows us to retain them on site while we're doing the wall reconstruction. We've come up with a construction methodology which does require still a significant amount of digging out of material and soil from behind the wall so that we can construct the new wall, but part of the design has been to optimise that, and I think when we're doing it, people are still going to say, oh my gosh, is that the optimised version? It is, but you have to batter it back to be able to work safely behind it. We have come a long way in working with State Heritage to work out what type of new fence structure will go along the top of the wall. People are going to probably ask why it needs to be there when there wasn't one there. When you work on a structure, if you change it, you have to design it and construct it to the latest standards, which means we do have to have fall protection at the top of that wall. We've been through a process to work out what type of fence structure would be most in keeping with the heritage value and just not just of the wall, but of the context of that whole area as a site. As it stands, we now have the final design, which obviously we took the councillors through in a briefing session, along with the detailed breakdown of the cost for constructing that. We have got our development approval in place. That's currently sitting with Heritage SA, so they've got a regulatory amount of time to assess that. We have worked very closely with Heritage SA through this whole process, so we are hopeful that it will get through nice and smoothly. From there, it then goes into the rest of the DA or I guess council DA process. That will include a public notification because of the significance of the works. And then once we have all our approvals, and pending the approval of this officer's recommendation, works will commence towards the latter part of May. Was that dot pointy enough?
I think so, Wendy. Councillor White, has that provided you the information you're after? Yes. Did you have a further comment? Yes? Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Sorry, thank you, Wendy, for that response. Just a secondary question, specifically around the fence. I think that when you take your initial look at the renders, obviously that is a sort of first thing your eyes drawn to, just simply because it hasn't been there in its existence. You sort of touched on it in your response just then, but I guess just seeking a bit of maybe further clarification on that, the design of that fencing and how that will align with the historic nature of the park and the wall and the monument.
So through the chair. So we looked at a number of different fencing options and came up with, I guess, a top three that we thought, well, actually the heritage advisors would be the most suitable. And then we continued to, I guess, refine what they would look like through renders and discussion. So the picket fence design that you see in the council report, I guess the context from that comes from it aligns to the type of fence that used to be around the historic graves. And indeed in the historic photos that we did include in the report, you actually can see those, I'll call them boundary fences. I'm not quite sure what their official name is, but you can see them in the background. So again, from that historic context, that picket fence is in keeping with that heritage vision. The colour of that fence is going to be in a mild grey, and that actually will help it meld into the background, so it becomes almost a little bit more invisible if people can. So architecturally, that's what we've been advised, and state heritage were quite distinct around that colour choice as well. The other reason, I guess that was one of the preferred styles of fences, is that in terms of ongoing maintenance, it does provide the most sensible and low maintenance type of infrastructure. The other styles of fencing we were considering had probably a higher chance of more frequent vandalism and therefore increased maintenance cost, and the other had quite a bespoke design to it, which was going to make perhaps damage harder to achieve but more costly to repair if it did happen. In this design option, it's actually quite a readily available resource that we can have on site to repair quickly as well.
Thank you, Wendy. Did you have any further comment at all? Councillor Davies, I saw your hand, and then Councillor Koch, and then Councillor Samble.
So I'm happy to support this motion. Obviously, no one's really happy with the costs, but you know what it comes down to is, you know, if you inherited a house and it turns out it had termite damage, it would be incorrect to say the new owner cost this much for a repair. It's like no, the new owner found that this council has inherited the decisions of previous councils. And I think we are doing the clean-up work. Not that we are extravagantly spending, but that a lack of spending earlier on has led to us needing to invest. And also just on a historical point, we call it the wall, but the important part here, historically speaking, is the monument. The wall was built to protect the monument in the first place, basically. Like the wall is second-tier heritage and the monument is first-tier heritage, as those things go. And so the monument does require a lot of... the monument's also suffered damage and needs help, and which is sort of the more, in my view, high-priority part of it in that sense. If we could restore the monument and get rid of the wall or whatever, then, you know, I know Councillor Hennessy, I'm not suggesting that. But that would, historically, the monument would be the most important part there. And so that is a big part of what we're doing here involves the monument. I thought I'd just point that out because we talk about it as the wall.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Councillor Koch, you had some comments?
Question, and then I've got some comments. I mean, some comments have been made tonight that it's been a lack of spending on that wall that's caused us into this situation. I don't know whether that's true or not. Is that a true comment or not? Because I can't see what could have happened because that wall was used as a retaining wall. I don't know what could have happened. I just want to get a comment around that.
When are you happy to provide feedback on that? Yep.
So through the chair, the reality is the wall could have done with intervention, probably at more regular intervals over its entire life. Some of the repair work that was done historically was done to the current standards in those times, which actually is the wrong type of mortar and actually has caused the stone to sweat and decay at a quicker rate. That isn't unique to this wall. That's happened in many different building projects everywhere. I think probably the thing that hastened the decline more recently was those climatic events where we had the very extended dry periods with massive soil shrinkage, followed by a quick succession of very wet seasons, which then expanded the soil, and then we had another dry sequence which retracted it again. So I think the climatic changes definitely did have an impact. I think I can't probably comment any further on historic maintenance regimes, though.
I mean, I guess we can all agree we are where we are, and the option is. But Councillor Koch, you had some more comments.
Look, from my point of view, my view of the world is that it was the fact that it was treated as a retaining wall when it's not actually a retaining wall, and then that moisture sits behind it, and that was probably the issue. That's happened throughout Gawler, where we've had freestanding walls, heritage walls, and people have used them as retaining walls. That's what happened across the road. It was battered back. The walls were repaired. It's fine. It does what it should be doing. I don't think we could have done much more. Once it was identified that there was movement in the wall, this council got onto it straight away, and I applaud the council for doing that, and straight away making that wall safe for the community. And all the other things that we've done, I think, are to a T. The archaeological digs, working with the museum, there was remains, there was cataloguing, everything was done sympathetically. We've done some really good design. I cannot see any errors at all in this whole process. We had some original designs, and I remember the original design was to be battered. It's all been changed. And now, even when I look at the design, the way that the capping fits behind, so it fits in neatly with the aggregate where the soil ends, is just fantastic. It will last for another century. I mean, it cannot be faulted. And yes, we have to spend some money, but that's what we have to do in this town to make sure that we ensure our heritage is valued and appreciated. It's a signature wall. It matches in with the monument. If it came down, which the wall on the other side was actually taken down, they just knocked it over years ago, and I think that was a loss. We're going to actually hopefully spend some money on retaining that wall as a signature feature of our town. I think that's fantastic. I can't see anything other than, I can only praise the way it has been carried through so meticulously, and I'm just looking forward for it it being done, and I think it'll be great. So well done to the team. That's my comment.
Thank you, Councillor Koch. Councillor Sambu, you had some words?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. The one point that I am asking, and I just don't see what we're going to do about the eyesore that it is now with this second-rate barricades that are up there. In this day and age, there's a lot of modern things. If it was the V8 supercars in Adelaide, you have a printed sheet of, I suppose it's called something like shade cloth, to run along, and maybe it could be an image of Gawler or, you know, the area. Right. You drive into Gawler now and you come from somewhere else. The people from Queensland I saw on the weekend, they said, "Hill, what's going on up the top of the street?" You know, it looks like a bomb's hit the place. So that's going to be like that until November. You know, think about this. Do we really want it looking like that until November? And the answer is no. We've got to make it look nice. All the shops are pretty and done up and everything, the whole lot. So I just can't believe there's nothing in the information here that is going to do something about the eyesore that is now. So I don't know who could answer that, but something's got to be done because it looks crappy.
Thank you, Councillor Sample. I'll have a go and then I might try to defer over. So when the construction actually starts, the contractor, being the lead contractor, will actually take ownership of that site. So therefore it actually falls out of our responsibility during the contract. I'm sure some feedback will be able to be passed on, but if the contractor will perform how I'm sort of expecting them to, you actually might see some of their banner wrap and some of their advertising that you might see similarly into other construction projects across the town when pedestrian safety is actually the first point of call, and the barrier fencing and the construction fence is that standard operating procedure that has to happen, albeit it is a bit of an eyesore. I'm probably a little bit numb to it. I look at it every day, but we understand why we have to do it, and I'm sure your feedback will be able to be passed on because it is a staple piece in the town, and we do want the project to be run as professionally as possible, which I'm sure it will. Did you want to add something to that? No, nothing further. All right, no worries at all. Did we have any further discussion on this particular matter? There be none. I'm going to put that to the vote, members. If I can see all those in favour raise their hand. And all those against, it is carried. Thank you, members. I'm going to move on to item 9.4, noting that Councillor Lorna, you are declaring a conflict. Did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, just clearing a material conflict as I do sit on the board and apparently I'm supposed to. So.
Thank you, Councillor Lorna. Did you have some? Okay, thank you. CEO?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to declare, as I sit on the board, I do have a conflict, but I will stay in the room.
Thank you, CEO. Councillor Solomon.
I'm going to declare a material conflict, given that I'm council's representative on the board. But once again, note that I don't agree with the interpretation, the fact that there's a triple negative, which seems to have a glaring syntax error. The fact that there's interplay between the Act and the regulations, which makes zero logical sense, and that I'm not sure that any judge anywhere would be able to make heads or tails of it. But in saying that, I'm going to protect myself by making sure I leave the room and comply with the legal advice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Solomon. I'll give you a moment to leave the room. Full disclosure, I'm proxy, but I won't be declaring any conflicts at all. Okay, members, we do have an officer's recommendation. Before we start the conversation, we do have Toby, the CEO of Norma, here to answer any questions, should members want to ask any. If not, we do have an officer's recommendation. We also potentially have an alternative that I think is up on the screen. That's the alternative there, isn't it? Yes. Yeah. Not perfect. So, Councillor Koch would like to move this particular motion. We're in your hands, members, but Councillor Koch, if you're happy to move it, maybe some rationale behind it, and then see if we can coach a seconder for you.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I'm just looking on page 31 of 139, if people want to go down to that. And this is the rationale behind just adding that little bit there. And it's 3.2.5. It talks about the landfill alternative project and, you know, Yellowberry is closing, We've got another alternative. We're using IWS out at Dublin, which I think is not a bad solution. But Norma's going to continue on with looking at alternatives, which I think is good because there probably is some other alternatives out there, which I could probably touch on in a minute. But all I'm suggesting in this situation is just that we keep an eye on the spending because there's some carryover monies, from the last budget, and that we correctly allocate the effort into this investigation against that budget line. It's just so we're making sure that, that the effort is allocated to the budget line. And then when that amount is potentially exhausted, that there would potentially be another allocation if Norma, if we all decide to continue investigations. That's all the rationale is behind it. It's just a transparency,
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Koch. Are you happy for me to call for a seconder?
Would you want me to talk to the motion as well?
Oh yes. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. I suppose, for the last, 5 years or so, Norma has been investigating the alternative for Ulibarri. I mean, that was something that was top of mind, for the board, etc. And I suppose there was a level of urgency around finding a solution because Ulibarri is going to close, and therefore where does all this material go to? Now if you read the plan, the budget, that's now going to be closed, and and IWS, Integrated Waste Solutions, will be dealing with our red bin. I suppose the other bins as well. Now that's a pretty good alternative solution for our council because they've got some pretty innovative processes. If you go onto their website, they've got a system where they can actually take the green waste out of the red bin, which is pretty important. And usually that makes up about 40% of the red bin. Now, the problem with green waste in red bins, when it goes into landfill, it creates methane. That's what happens when you compost green waste anaerobically. That's what natural gas is, it's just methane. And that's a really bad greenhouse gas. So by taking that out, you're actually reducing greenhouse gases, potentially. Also, they can take out the ferrous and non-ferrous metals. So that sort of reduces your red bin down by about 40%. So then there's less landfill and there's less levy. So that's a really good outcome. Yep. So, and as it says there, Norm is going to continue on looking at some alternatives. It's going to use the funds that were allocated. I won't mention the number, but you can look at, people can look at the previous budgets. And just I think, and because it's been going for 4 or 5 years, it's really good to be monitoring that, and that's the rationale. And really, there's some really exciting developments that could happen. There's I read an article about some work happening in the universities around bacteria and plastics and a whole range of things, and they're looking at potentially commercialising that in 5 or 6 years. I mean, that's a really exciting thing to think about. This is work happening within universities. It's not, some hippie in the corner somewhere. But this is the universities that are looking, say, at plastic-eating bacteria. I mean, if that happens, that could actually change globally the way we manage waste. I mean, it's just incredible stuff out there. So we need to have a watching brief on the innovations that are happening around the world within the universities and how they will be potentially commercialised over time. So I think Norma's probably in a good space now. The Ulibarri will be closed, to be capped. People around there will be happy because a lot of times there's a level of angst around there. I think IWS will probably do a pretty good job. But it does give us a bit of a buffer to think about what we might do down the track because we're still looking at the alternatives. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Koch. Looking for a seconder. Yeah, I'm happy to take a question. Councillor Davies?
Just a clarification whether that point 2 materially changes anything or if it's just sort of symbolically stating it.
I'll have a go, CEO, and then if you need to jump in. I wouldn't call it symbolic. I think Councillor Koch's motivation is just about making sure that we're crystal clear on our strategy that the elected body directed council to take, and just in regards to, in lack of a better term, and no disrespect to Norma at all, our divorce is managed amicably, I guess, as we move forward, and making sure that we cover the spending model in Norma and whatever then comes out of the next version, if that makes sense. Did you want to add any words to that? No, happy there. Does that answer your question? Yep. Do I have a seconder for Councillor Koch's version? You're happy to second. Would you like to speak?
Yeah, I'm happy to second the motion. It seems to make clarity, and I think in terms of our community having that, I think generally people are of the opinion that Norma is doing a good job, but I think when it comes down to the fine detail, I commend Councillor Koch for keeping us on the ball, particularly as we have to lose our board members from these meetings. I appreciate that his experience is coming through. So, yeah, happy to second the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Hennessy. Councillor Davies.
Yep, I'll support the motion. And yeah, just on that, somewhat of a tangent about the council members being allowed to stay in the room. Yes, I continue to find it disappointing. We did bring this up to the Local Government Association as a motion, and I think the issue is that subsidiaries as we have them are very different to subsidiaries as they are considering in terms of markets and things, rather than our form of subsidiary, which is that we put board members on the board so they can come back and report to us, and then when it comes back to us, the board members can't report to us because it's a conflict of interest, which is just inherently very silly. But we'll have to continue to work through that. But I'm happy with the report.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Any further discussion? Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, just really briefly, yeah, support the motion and the settlement. It's also, I think it sort of goes back to what the chair has actually told us as well. So from my memory, so I think this just reinforces it, which is really good.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Any further discussion? And also noting, thank you, Toby, and we've also got his Executive Manager of Finance, if I'm correct, sitting in the room as well. So I'm sure the language we're speaking is well and truly noted, and yeah, we look forward to continuing our great work with Norma. So I'll put this to the vote, members. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Koch. So we'll move, I'll let the other elected members come back in. Thank you, members. So we're on page 48 of 139. Item 9.5 about the terms of reference for our Economic Development Funding and Delivery Model Working Party Group. Do I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Councillor White, would you like to make any comments?
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, look, I'm happy to support the officer's recommendation. This has been economic development provided and supported by the town of Gawler, I think has been an ongoing task that we've taken on board, an ongoing challenge, I think is also fair to say, but it's really positive to see that in recent months there has been some significant progress in this space. I do want to thank the work of Business Gawler, who also in recent months have been progressing in this space. As we were discussed at a previous council meeting, this working group, I feel the person in me that just wants to get rid of bureaucracy says we've got a working group who are going to devise delivery options, who will report back to council, who will then make a decision, makes me go, oh, can't we just get on with it? But I think what the difference is here is we're actually getting the right people in the right room, and actually a majority of the people that have got experience in economic development and business within this town and really understand the logistical challenges, mixed in with people who can assist with the overall strategy and how we want to look moving forward in regards to economic development delivery within this town. So for that reason, I'm very, very happy to move this motion, but even more happy and excited to see what is reported back to council in the coming months and see what options we have, which I hope as an elected member body we can really jump on board to pursue what is a really important part of our town, not just economically, but for so many other factors as well. And it is about time that we have a serious look at some really decent options, led by the right people in the room, to actually get this back on track.
Thank you, Councillor White. Do I have a seconder for this? Councillor Hennessy, would you like to speak? No? Councillor Kosh?
Chair,
Yep.
could somebody provide some examples of economic delivery models? 'Cause I don't really understand what that actually means.
Yeah, look, I am happy to handball that one. I reckon I could have a crack, but I feel like I'd be in a ramble.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. In the context of Business Gawler, I think we're not talking about terribly complex models. The question here is, what does Business Gawler deliver? What does the town of Gawler look to deliver in terms of economic development? How do we support each other in that goal? And what's the funding model to help achieve that? And it's what we're talking about here is what are the relative aspects of those components and how do they come together? Just to elaborate a little bit further, last evening we met with Business Gawler, or this working group met, to actually try and progress the understanding of what the final model that might be recommended to council looks like. And the step that Business Gawler have agreed to undertake is to come back to the table with reference to their recent strategic planning and what they believe they will be looking to offer the business community in specific terms, so that this group can then understand what are the gaps from that offering that the town of Gawler should look to pick up and potentially look to address through its economic development activities. So I don't think this is about picking up the university textbook and describing different economic development models. It's about what's going to work for the town of Gawler, having a regard for where we've come from to now.
Does that provide you, or you've got a follow-up there?
I'll wait for the model to come out.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, no worries. Did I have any further comments, noting we've had a mover and seconder? Any other further discussion, members, on the terms of reference? There be none. I will put that to the vote. Those in favour of accepting the terms of reference? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, members. Moving on, we've got the Stormwater Management Authority Board nomination, 9.6, page 54 of 139. Looking for a mover. Councillor Kosh, I saw your hand first. Would you like to speak?
Yeah, I would. I've worked with Wendy over a number of years on the GMRFA. I've been very impressed with her knowledge when it comes to managing water resources, and I think she'll be a very good representative on the Stormwater Management Authority. Thank you.
Certainly a topic in Wendy's wheelhouse, which we look forward to benefiting from. Do I have a second? Councillor Lorna, would you like to speak at all?
My last bit of time I spent with Wendy since I've become a new member here, I've found her to be clear and transparent in the approach to the chamber, and particularly this product. It seems to be her jam. I really have no issues with supporting Wendy with this here, and here's a little bit more work for you, I guess, if it comes up. So, good luck.
Thank you for your words, Councillor Lorna. Any further discussion? Councillor White.
Just briefly, I'd like to echo Councillor Kosh's and Councillor Lorna's words and congratulate Wendy, and hopefully we see some positive outcomes from this for you, Wendy. But also I think a broader picture, something like this really does, I mean, stormwater, for example, is such a critical bit of infrastructure that doesn't often get talked about because it's not the shining new thing, but particularly at the moment as we're looking at water management in the driest state and the driest continent on the world, I think it comes back into the spotlight. So I think it's fantastic to have a staff member like Wendy who has this incredible knowledge and passion and ability to communicate, be acknowledged by being put forward to hopefully be a representative on the SMA. Not only is that great personally for Wendy, but I think it's really important as an organisation and as a town we show that we have really fantastic professionals working for us within our community that are also able to collaborate with the broader state government authorities and bring that knowledge back to our town. So I think it does really show we have fantastic workforce, the people who, while we as an elected body are responsible for the actions of this council, the people that are actually on the ground doing the work are also extremely professional and have great experience, and we're very, very lucky to have them. So I think it does send a very strong message to our community. But all the best, Wendy, with the nomination, and yeah, thank you for all the work you do.
Some more right people in the right room, would you say? Thank you, Councillor White. Any further discussion on the recommendation? There be none, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, members. Moving on to 9.7, we're on page 59. This is, you'd like to move? Oh, you want to declare a conflict. Sorry, Councillor. No worries. You'd like to leave the room? No worries. We'll take that and we'll give you a moment to leave the room. Thank you. All right, members, we have our officer's recommendation. Do I have a mover? Or any questions before we look for a mover? There be none. Do we have a mover? Councillor Hughes, you'd like to move that way? Would you like to speak at all? No? Looking for a seconder? Councillor Vallelonga, would you like to speak at all? Any further discussion? Councillor Hennessy.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. I just queried.
No apology needed.
Yeah, the query. There's a substantial decrease in the annual budget from last year to this year, which, having read it twice, I didn't quite get it's dropped from 400,000 to 290 in round figures. Could I have an explanation, perhaps, of what's happening?
So what page are you on there for members?
Sorry, page 61 of 139.
61 of 131?
Yep.
While you're flicking to that, members, Wendy, would you like to respond to that? Yep.
Yep, through the chair. So last year, the GRFMA requested its constituent councils to contribute an additional set of funds. It was about $200,000, funnily enough, Councillor Hennessy. And that was to show, well, actually to enable the business case for the extended flood mitigation dam to be progressed. So basically the point of view at that time was that the member councils needed to be showing that they would contribute, as was the state government, to making the business case happen. So each council eventually did agree to provide the extra funds, but this year we don't need to do that. So we're back down to what is our more standard annual contribution.
That answer? Yeah, a one-off project by the sounds of that. Any further discussion on this item, members? There be none. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. I'll just give Councillor Koch a moment to enter the room again. Oh, of course, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. We're on item 9.8, page 86 of 139. You'd like to move that or question before? No worries, Councillor White.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Question, if possible. I think I asked this question last year, but every year when we get the draft fees and charges, it's a very overwhelming document, and that's okay. It would be fantastic through the chair if we could get a brief rundown of any major changes that have been implemented, or if there is any, and then any justification in regards to those changes compared to last financial year.
No worries at all. Sharon, are you happy to provide comment?
Yep.
Thank you.
Through the chair, so there hasn't actually been any major changes with regard to any new fees or charges that have actually been introduced. I do note we did not pick up today that the busking fee came through, and that does not apply. So that was an error which will get rectified when the fees and charges are actually presented for adoption. I think with regard to, I suppose, the increases, have been applied either based on the CPI and then adjusted for rounding, just from a ease of cash handling perspective. So some may be higher and some may be lower. Some of the philosophy, especially with, I suppose, some of the user charges in the sports centre, you know, when you apply the percentage, it's just such a minor percentage. So sometimes we may just not apply an increase for that particular year, and we'll wait for the cumulative impact for it to actually get to a next rounded area. But there's no significant changes with regard to the fees and charges that we actually apply.
Thank you for that. Does that answer your question, Councillor White? Any further questions before we move to a mover? Councillor Hennessy.
Yeah, thank you. I guess just to reiterate for the sense of the community, we are putting them up minimal amounts to cover the cost of living, but we are very well aware at the moment that for the community that we're holding the cost of living as down to what we can do, while still making these user pay type charges. So I just think that's worth clarity, because we often get negative comments about our budgeting, but I think at this point we should advertise to the community that these are being held down as much as we can, but at the same point it still has to cover costs. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hennessy. If we can leave sort of those comments to the debate, I think that's all good. If was there any other questions before we enter into the debate? There be none. Councillor Davies, were you happy to move the officer's recommendation?
Yeah, look, I'm happy to move it. As said before, these are largely 3 to 4% rises across the board, that for obvious reasons, because that's what happens every year with money. And then if it's more, it tends to be because it sometimes just makes more sense to have a round figure and go up from $2 to $2.50 or something like that, if it's something that's just easier from a cash perspective. But for the most part, it's all fairly standard there.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Happy to second. Councillor White, any discussion?
Obviously, no one really likes fees and charges on our facilities, absolutely not. And the day that we're in a position to allow the use of our facilities for free to our community will be a great day. But unfortunately, the world we live in means we can't at this point. But I do think that they're very fair and reasonable, and there are always opportunities for adjustments in regards to a number of our community policies, and just want to thank the work of Sharon and her team for consistently updating and making sure we're getting the best bang for buck, as is our community.
Thank you, Councillor White. Any further discussion? There be none. Councillor Davies, are you happy for me to close the debate? I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, members. Okay, so we have item 9.8 on page 86. We have as officer's recommendation. Do we have any questions before we enter into the debate? There be none. I have an officer's recommendation looking for a mover. Happy to move that way, Jim. Would you like to speak at all to the motion? Any seconders, please? Happy to second. Councillor Hughes, would you like to speak to it at all? Any discussion? Just putting it out there for the finance team, we do read these and we appreciate them. We'll try not to downplay it. But any further discussion, members? There be none. I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. Thank you, members. Moving on, we have item 9.10, and we note Bryson and Tim in the room. If there's any questions that anyone has on the officer's recommendation prior to moving, Absolutely, let's hear him now. You've got a question there, Councillor White?
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. First of all, Bryce and Tim, thank you for your work in this space. I have a question, but I do just want to comment first that it's really good that there are some things, like we've ticked some things off, which is great. My only sort of concern, and this is no discredit to the work that has been done, but I guess when the Climate Emergency Action Plan was written, it was always supposed to be an aspirational, ambitious document. Are we tweaking it too much, that it's actually becoming too realistic? Saying this out loud makes me sound like I'm contradicting myself, because normally I'm all for, let's not have, godmother plans that we can't ever achieve, and now I'm saying, no, why are we bringing it back? But I guess this is a topic, as a council, we've been leaders in, and we've decided that we want to be really ambitious in. In your professional opinion, is it being toned down too much? Or I guess maybe there's a fine line in there. What's sort of, I guess, your thoughts on that, without being critical towards you whatsoever?
I might just go to the CEO in the first instance.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I still believe it is an aspirational document, and the one area that I'd like to focus on is canopy cover. If we think about where the canopy cover is now, it's at 12-odd%, and to get to 30% requires a heck of a lot of new trees to create that canopy, and knowing the challenges that are going forward, we may still not get there inside our indicative dates, but the document is saying we will aim for that. And that's indicative of a number of things. I think motor vehicles and heavy fleet, the components that are in there, talking about our targets to go to EVs in those two areas. We know that getting our heavy vehicles to EVs is an aspirational target. The technology is not quite there yet. It exists, but it's very expensive. We know we can achieve it more readily with our light fleet, but it's an aspirational target in my mind when we talk about our heavy fleet. So they're just two components. I think there's probably a few others through the document, but I am absolutely satisfied that it's still aspirational, but certainly gives me the ability to work with the organisation to continue to drive forward to achieve positive environmental outcomes.
Bryce, Tim, you had nothing to add? Tim, you've always got something to add. No, you're all good? Yeah, I could see you square. Do you want to press there?
I'd just add that I think that the balance is right between aspiration and what we can do in practice, and it's always going to be a challenge, and we won't proceed. We won't make progress in every action and on every goal at the same rate, but sometimes we're laying the foundation for some things to shift, and then we can actually achieve those outcomes. So again, I just say that I think that it is a balance of aspiration and practical actions.
Thank you, Tim, and you being on the working group and involved in the development of the plan. One of the strong points we always had as a group was making sure that the plan was such that it could actually move with the new position of council, that council would find itself in, the new pieces of data, and being that fluid document that could be adaptable. We're probably seeing a part of that process as we speak now. But anyway, that's my 2 cents for what it's worth. Any further questions? Did that provide the clarity you were after, Councillor White? Any further questions before we move on to the officer's recommendation? There be none. Looking for a mover. Councillor Davies, you're happy to move that way? Would you like to speak?
Yeah, look, I think this has been quite a successful project so far. I think initially there was some, why is council getting into all this, wishy-washy international stuff? But really what this means is we're reducing our energy consumption by switching to LED lights, saving costs for the council. We're working on an integrated transport plan so that we have a working bus network. These are the sorts of things that are, canopy cover means that people are able to walk, and during hot days and that sort of thing. And I can tell you, as someone who likes to walk, there are places that I will go and won't go depending on the canopy cover. Like if it's a 40-degree day, and I'm down on the train line, for example, I know I'm not going to go to the Manapara shops because the walk from the Smithfield train to the Manapara shops is largely just a big open plain where you just have to walk through the open heat. Whereas, you know, if you went down to Elizabeth, for example, it's sort of train station cover, shopping centre. And that's the sort of thing that people who walk and take public transport and that sort of thing do heavily consider in their plans for, will I engage in the local area today, or is it safer for me to go out to Elizabeth where I can get undercover and that sort of thing, you know? And so I think that's the sort of stuff that we're considering isn't just about climate, it's basically about let's make this a better, nicer place to live where you can get around more easily and you're more encouraged to go out, do active, passive exercise, all that sort of thing. So it's all incorporated and I think we're doing a great job at it so far.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Do I have a seconder? You're happy to do second, Councillor Solomon?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to second this motion. I think it's a good report to have, and some of those elements in there I think show a bit of maturity in this space, because what it means is that we're learning what it actually means to find solutions to the climate issues, the energy issues that we need to address. And I think that's highlighted in this report, that we can make a decision to do some things really well and ensure that we are actually making an impact. And you know, where we do maybe what Councillor White contextualises as some was it realism or practicality in there, I think it shows a sense of maturity in that we've learnt what needs to be done, we've learnt what's possible, and now we're setting ourselves the goal of ensuring that we achieve those things. And with these kind of plans, I think we always have to be really careful as a council, because we want to make sure that we're not trying to do everything at once, and that we're not trying to just make these broad statements and then not achieve anything and get to the end of the cycle of this report and go, oh, what is it that we've actually achieved? But I think with the Climate Emergency Action Plan, we've seen some runs on the board here. We've seen some really good things that have come out of this that are addressing our energy usage, that are, they're actually contributing to a much lower carbon footprint at the same time as saving ratepayers money. It's a win-win. You can't make an argument against that. But we need to ensure that some of these ambitious targets are getting the focus that they deserve, so that we can continue to deliver these things for our community. And so I think this is a good step forward. And personally, from what's been taken out here, I don't see any reduction in ambition, really. I just see some really good things which are being removed because we've done them. We can now say that we've achieved some of these really great goals. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor Solomon. Any further discussion? Councillor Koch.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Look, I want to talk about being realistic. As you know, I've got a background in arboriculture, and I wanted to highlight a study that came out of Melbourne University, Burnley campus. In fact, that's where I studied originally. And it actually looked at a whole lot of scenarios with tree planting and looking at getting a 30% coverage, because somebody's decided that we need a 30% canopy cover by 2025. They did a whole lot of trials, a whole lot of scenarios, and this is the highlights. They said individual tree growth models were used to test the canopies in new developments. That was the first thing. Optimising new planting locations can increase canopy cover by 5 to 7% only. Rainfall differences affects growth, because you've got plants grow at different rates. Also, trees have different canopies. Some have thick canopies, some have light canopies. No, this is interesting, no tree planting scenario achieved 30% coverage after 30 years. So this is research. This is just, someone's view from somewhere. These developments have, so they talked about new developments. They said these developments had insufficient public space to achieve canopy cover targets. Okay, this is research. So this is not, this is actual proper science. And if you go to the conclusions, it said, however, our results suggest that a more sustainable solution will be requiring changes to the design of residential developments to create more space in both public and private realm. So what it's saying is that when we have developments like this, cheek to jowl, there's absolutely no way that you can get 30% coverage, canopy coverage. So what you have to do is we need to talk to the government and say you need to change the way your planning rules to actually give room for more trees, if that's what you want, because what's happening is they're creating heat islands. And, you can't magically wave a wand and say we're going to have 30% tree cover and the heat island is gone, because here's the evidence, it won't happen. So that, so we can go out and look at a 30% tree cover, but, in the new developments, it probably won't happen. In the older parts of Gawler, if you look across, there is probably getting close to that sort of coverage because they're big blocks and there are big trees. You need to put in big trees. In the developments, the new developments, we have very small areas that we can plant a tree, a verge, it's about this wide. So we have to put in trees that, and this is what people say, trees that behave properly. And that means the roots don't lift up the road, they don't lift up the pavement, they don't lift up the, the power lines. So they tend to be small, medium-sized trees, like Chinese pears, for example. You look around and everybody's planting them because they're the ones that behave nicely within these little urban areas. Those trees are not going to give us the 30% coverage. So I'm looking forward to looking at this policy and actually seeing what we can achieve. Because, for example, you could say, theoretically, we could fill up a third of our town, that's 500 hectares, with trees, and that would give us 30% cover, and then the rest of it would just be pretty well ordinary. That would tick the box of 30%. Or do we say every third house in these new developments has to be gone and we put a big tree in? What are we going to do? So is it, that scenario, or is it something we aggregate? So I'm actually looking forward to this policy on what we might be able to achieve. And when we look at this sort of research, which is realistic, this is the stuff that you need to be looking at, and we can make some proper decisions, not rely on hope and fairy dust or whatever, but really, real science, because I've got a science background and that's what I look at. So anyway, I'll be looking forward to this, and I'll vote for it because I'd like to see this policy come through, and I'd like to see how realistic it is and whether it's going to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Koch. Are you able just to circulate the document?
It was attached to the...
Oh, sorry, I couldn't, yeah. It's there. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Koch. Any further discussion? Councillor White?
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, I agree with much what Councillor Koch just said, but I think it's ridiculous now. We have these developments with flat roofs and they're all facing west, and it's just crazy. But I really think what the Climate Emergency Action Plan does, though, is it allows us to be in that advocacy space, which I think is really, really important, because unfortunately we don't have the call on that. But what we can do is continue building and developing those relationships and continue to, stand our ground, and along with any allies potentially within local government sector too, and keep pushing for that. And I truly believe that by doing that, we will get somewhere. But I really appreciate you bringing these concerns, Councillor Koch, because they are concerns. But I think it's really good that we're in this space. In regards to Bryce and Tim, thank you before. That's all I needed to hear about that sort of fine balance. I think that's really, really good. And I think the practicality of this is fantastic, doing our part to continue fighting against climate change and the effects. I also take what Councillor Solomon said in regards to not only do we have strong environmental impacts, we actually have financial savings that we are achieving here. So it truly is a win-win for the community. And beautifying and diversifying our town. We've heard from Councillor Davies, and I totally agree with him that, yeah, we don't want a town without trees. We want to be comfortable. We want to encourage people to be active. And that also helps. So it truly is a win-win-win in many ways. A little story about doing our bit. I think Councillor Samble will like this. There was a beach with an old man walking along it, and one morning there was thousands of little starfish that were washed up on the beach. And there was a boy that went along the beach and he saw the old man throwing the starfish in one by one individually back into the ocean. And the boy asked the old man, "Why are you doing that? You're never going to save them all." And the old man turned to the boy and said, "Yeah, but it'll help this guy," threw him in, "and help this guy." And that's true. And also, if every single one of us just threw in a starfish each, wouldn't the world be a better place?
Thank you, Councillor White. And thank you for your starfish handling. Councillor Samble, is that what I picked up on there? Okay, members, so we have a motion. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Yeah, no worries. Councillor Lorna.
Thank you for that. Also picking up what Councillor Cross is saying there about the trees and all that sort of stuff, and, you know, west-facing roofs, what Councillor White said, I'd like them to be all nice big roofs north so I can put all my solar panels everywhere. It'd be fantastic, but that's just, there's a lot of work to do, obviously, with the state, with what the design, which I see a lot of our reports and that plans are going into. You know, when I first seen, you know, getting involved in council about the Climate Emergency Action Plan, it's like, oh my God, what hippie stuff are we doing now? Sort of thing, until I started actually really digging into it and then seeing the work that Bryce and Tim have actually put into it. It's very important to me. Obviously, I'm in the renewable energy sector and that as well, so, you know, I've got a lot to do with this, but with everything that we do as a council and a business, there's got to be an economical benefit to it as well. Otherwise, we're just spending money chasing dreams and that for everybody else. I think it's quite good what we are doing at the moment, as what we're seeing through this report and what was at the last information session, that you guys showing that there was economical benefit in what we're doing, particularly in the way where our cash flow is at the moment. We really need to make sure that what we're putting into to support and work on this climate emergency plan actually has a benefit on both ends. So, and really it is important that we have on a financial benefit as well, so whatever goals we're looking for, we need to make it align. And so far what I've seen that you guys have been doing, it's good, so I'll support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lorna. Any further discussion? There be none. Councillor Davies, would you like to close the debate?
Sure. Look, just to reiterate, this is, it's nice to have the big dreams and help the starfish and all of that, but I think fundamentally, even if you said, oh, there's no climate crisis, this document would still be saving us money, creating more efficient systems for us, creating a better environment for the people who live here. Like, it's just a fundamentally positive document for our community, so I hope that everyone can support it.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. The debate is now closed. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour and all those against. Councillor Vallelonga, just need you to vote. I'm just going to put that to the vote. All those in favour? We have it carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, moving on. Information reports, we've got nil. Recommendations from committees, we have nil. So item 12 is external bodies report. We have an officer's recommendation. Do I have any questions? A mover? I'm in your hands. Councillor Hennessy, you're happy to move. Any comments at all? No? Looking for a seconder? Councillor Lorna, would you like to speak at all? Any further discussion? There be none. I'm going to put that to the vote. All those in favour? And we're carried unanimously. Thank you, members. Questions on notice? We don't have any. questions without notice, members? Councillor Samble.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I'm just wondering if we can have any update report on the information to do with the Gawler Vintage and Veteran Car Club progress to be able to move forward with their building.
Yeah, I'll take that question. CEO.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Happy to provide a quick update. I was pleased to sit in on a meeting with our planners midweek where we had the president of the club along with their, I'll call them their planning consultants or the people assisting with their application. Primarily there was some concerns around the drainage of the site, the car park. I'm pleased to say that by the time we left that meeting, all parties were happy. In fact, I was pleased that our planning staff were able to recommend some slightly cheaper solutions to the club. That was all received. And my understanding is now that the car club have gone away just to slightly amend their plans, and that will be resubmitted, and that will enable my planning team to ultimately sign off and turn over that project to progress. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. Does that answer your question? Any other further questions without notice? Councillor Hughes.
Just if there's any update at all on the Gawler show grounds and their accounts and things like that.
Are you happy to provide? Yep.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. David Barrett and myself met with the committee. They've now appointed a new president. We had a fairly productive conversation, I felt. One of the key aspects we focused on was provision of the financials. It was disappointing that they are still not in a position to provide their up-to-date financials. They provided that their auditor is up to 2021. We reiterated pretty clearly that that's still not acceptable, and it was going to make it very difficult for council to be able to consider their funding contribution. We did get them to commit to certain things to try and mitigate the fact that they're still not being provided. A couple of the things that they've committed to, or we asked and they've committed to, just from memory, we talked about a regular update being provided to myself. We also talked about them providing us a level of confidence about the systems they have in place. And we also talked about them sharing the details of the bookkeeper that they have, and from our understanding they're working effectively 2 days a week to help them out. There's a few other details we requested, which I just can't recall in the moment. Suffice to say, it's probably the most open conversation we've had with the group, and I felt that they were more readily providing information back to us. The new committee is clearly reticent that they need to get their financials in order, but clearly not as quickly as everybody would like. So in short, we're going to continue to drive that hard to try and get a positive outcome there. I can preempt that we won't have the financials by the time it comes back to council for us to consider, but hopefully what we can provide is at least giving council a level of comfort that the show will have the ability to go forward in being in a financially positive situation rather than being financially at risk. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. Does that answer your question, Councillor Hughes? Any other further questions without notice, members? There be none. Moving on, we have no motions on notice. Any motions without notice? There be none. So we'll note that as nil. We're on council member attendance and activities. Would any members like to talk to Councillor Lorna?
Thank you for that. Attended the Norma opening day of the fibre polishing plant. It was quite an good event. A lot of important people there, including the CEO, Cowley, and Jack was also there. So the three of us were waving the flag for the town of Gawler. there's a bit of media there. Tried to have a conversation with Susan Close, and obviously my charisma's not much what it used to be, sort of thing, so she was in a bit of a hurry to get going. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it, unless the CEO would like to add some more words to it. We have lots of photos and stuff, but yeah.
CEO, would you like to add to the Norma opening for the fibre polishing plant?
Just quickly, so we had Minister Joe Sockarch was also there. They were caught up in media opportunities, so we didn't get an opportunity to chew their ear on any matter in particular, but all of our counterparts were there, and it was excellent that Town of Gawler could fly the flag for our council.
Thank you, and thank you for stepping in for that one too, Mick. I appreciated that. I'm glad you're going already, so it was good to see some representative there from Gawler. Councillor Hennessy, did you have...
Thank you. Yes, last night I attended both the AGM and the board meeting of the Governing Council for the Gawler and Districts Community College. College, that's it. I'll get the name right. Part of the proceedings was to pass their annual report. I am seeking an electronic copy of part of that document to share with me elected members. I think some of the statistics coming out of the school at the moment are very impressive, and I think it would help for us all to be aware of the strides that they're making of one of the 3 large schools in our area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hennessy. Councillor Davies?
Yep, and just first to reiterate, the Gawler District College is doing a great job. I was the rep up until up until we swapped roles in November, and they're our only public high school, and they've got a lot on their plate, and they do a great job with it. So I wanted to mention I represented the Deputy Mayor representing the Mayor at the Gawler Showgrounds precinct meeting last Thursday, which did include representatives from the Gawler Show, the Gawler Central's Football Club, the Greyhounds. There's various users there. There's a pigeon club in there, but I don't believe I've met the people there. But just all the users of the precinct come together to make sure that they're not scheduling events over each other's events and that sort of thing, and just coming together with a bit of a plan. And I think that was quite productive, because especially a lot of them were new, because Centrals has appointed a new sporting club president and a new football club president. The Gawler Shows also appointed a new president, so it's a good chance to everyone to get to know each other there. And I also wanted to give a special shout out to our Gawler youth who did the drama program as part of our Gawler Fringe to a packed out civic centre, I might add, twice on the Saturday, I think the 8th, and they did a play. They roped me into a short role in it on the week of. They said, we need someone in the audience to do a little, 3/4 of the way through the play, shout out and say, you can't wait, you can't end the play, sort of thing. And so I got roped into it for the first time, but for the second time, there was a bit of a surprise for the youth. The playwright actually came to Gawler and watched that screening and played the role of the audience plant for that second screening. And so the youth were very excited to actually meet the person who wrote the play. And so I think they're going from strength to strength there. So I just wanted to mention that as well.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Any other attendances that anyone wants to mention? There've been none. I'll just quickly mention I represented the Mayor at the BLG launch on Sunday. It was at the Nixon Centre this time around. For those that you don't know, they do a launch, sort of a launch get-together luncheon, I guess you'd call it, prior to the season start, and they share the love. I think for the last couple of years it's been in Tanunda, Angaston, and it lands back in Gawler. It was good to hear where the league's going. It's good to see the excitement in the league. Obviously, Gather Round was a topic of discussion. Town of Gawler did get a good mention, I thought, from the president of the league that just, I guess, acknowledges the work we're doing in the space, but I guess the approach we're taking is seeming to be well respected. Some might think that the league just wants things done tomorrow, but I think it is being respected the way we're going about it and supporting our neighbours in their achievements while also focusing on our strategies to ultimately get our own runs on the board. So I thought I'd mention that one. Other than that, I mean, the calendar of the mayor is quite busy, but there's no point in trying to fill you in on all those meetings. But I am really appreciating the assistance for members actually stepping in because I think it is important we are showing face and continue through. So I don't have anything further to add on that particular item. Anyone else want to add anything? If not, I'll move on. There be nothing. We are actually now moving into the confidential matters. So for those tuning in, we thank you. But as we move into the confidential reports, I'll move to call for moving into confidence. Should that get up, you might see the cameras switch off. So looking for a mover for the officer's recommendation to move into confidence. Councillor Solomon, would you like to speak to that?
Sorry, I almost called you the wrong name there. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Shanks. I'm happy to move that for the reasons, A, the information disclosure of which would involve the unreasonable disclosure of information concerning the personal affairs of any person living or dead, information the disclosure of which could reasonably be expected to confer a commercial advantage on a person with whom the council is conducting or proposing to conduct business or to prejudice the commercial position of the council, and would on the balance be contrary to the public interest.
Thank you, Councillor Solomon. I'm looking for a seconder to move into confidence. Councillor Vallelonga, you happy with that? Any discussion? There be none. Put that to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. We'll move into